Good evening and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Kettering Planning Commission for Monday, February 5th, 2024. This meeting will be televised as usual on the Miami Valley Cable Council Cable Channel 6 and streamed live over the internet at mvcc.net. It will also be recorded and available for later viewing on mvcc.net. I would like to thank the Miami Valley Cable Council for televising and taping tonight's meeting. Since this meeting is both audio and videotaped to form a complete record for possible appeal to City Council and/or the courts, it is important that anyone who wishes to address the Commission to come to the lectern, speak into the microphone, and give their name and address for the record. The Planning Commission is a volunteer, independent body appointed by the Council whose mission is to hear all bodies involved and subsequently make a motion to approve, deny, continue, or recommend the application. All actions by the Commission can be appealed to the City Council. Now, normally I would introduce the members of the Planning Commission, but as the first item on our agenda, we're going to have an appointment of officers for 2024, so you'll be introduced to them at that time. So I would like to make a motion, or have someone make a motion, perhaps, for the slate of officers.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion for the slate of officers for the City of Kettering Planning Commission Board for 2024. Don Rethman, Chairperson. Troy Urbis, Vice Chairperson. Carol Fisher, Secretary. Ken Lackey, Assistant Secretary. And Ray Waskey is Planning Commissioner. This concludes my motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve this slate of candidates as our new officers for 2024. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Holmesy, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rethman?
Yes.
Mr. Urbis?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lackey?
Yes.
And Mr. Waskey?
Yes. So at this point, we will change our seating around. Sure. And to reflect it.
Oh.
I'm glad we don't have to go anywhere.
All right, and with that, then, we will move to the second item on the agenda, which is old business, which is the approval of the minutes from December 4th, 2023. Do we have a motion regarding these minutes?
So move.
All right. Do I have a second for the approval of the minutes of December 4th, 2023?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Lackey?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Waskey?
Yes.
Mr. Urbis?
Yes.
And Mr. Rethman?
Yes. All right. Item number 3 on the agenda this evening is new business. It is East Dorothy Lane right-of-way dedication. It is PC-23-022. Mr. Holmesy.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a very straightforward item on the agenda. It's really more of a cleanup of the existing right-of-way on Dorothy Lane, kind of in between the Rolling Fields neighborhood on the north side and the Prue Woods neighborhood on the south side. If you look at the plats that created those neighborhoods and dedicated the right-of-way along East Dorothy, there's a slight area where they don't align when it comes to the right-of-way dedication. And what this does is it officially dedicates that right-of-way, and this is kind of how you can see. If you look at the actual acreage that's being dedicated, it's less than 1/10 of an acre. It's 0.046 acres. And on the Prue Woods dedication, you can kind of see this is that orange outline is what was dedicated as right-of-way when Prue Woods, when the plat was approved, and then there's a small section right there that was for some reason not included in that right-of-way dedication. So staff reviewed the item. Zoning standards aren't applicable. This all falls within the right-of-way, and we also reviewed the dedication plan in relation to our subdivision standards, and the dedication plan was found to comply with all of our requirements. And we do have a recommendation, but before I get to that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions for staff? Mr. Lackey?
No.
Ms. Fisher? No. Mr. Urbis?
No.
Mr. Woski?
No.
I have no questions at all as well. So with that, recommendation, please.
Thanks again, Chairman. The recommendation is that the Planning Commission motion to approve the dedication plan, case number PC-23-022, as submitted.
All right. With that, if there's no other questions or comments, I believe, Mr. Urbis, you have a motion?
Yes, I do. Whereas an application has been received from Thomas Robillard, 3600 Schroyer Road, Kettering, Ohio, 45429, requesting approval of a dedication plan that would dedicate 0.046 acre portion of East Dorothy Lane as a public right-of-way, and whereas this request constitutes approval of a final dedication plan for this portion of East Dorothy Lane, and whereas the Planning Commission has reviewed the facts surrounding this request, including an oral and written report by city staff, which is incorporated herein. I move that the applicant's request for approval of a final dedication plan for East Dorothy Lane be approved.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any question? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Urbis,
Yes.
Mr. Woski,
Yes?
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Lackey,
Yes.
and Mr. Rethman.
Yes. All right, moving on. Fourth item on the agenda this evening is a replat at 1556 Oakland Avenue. It is PC-23-023. Mr. Holmesy.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another fairly straightforward record plan. There's only one item of note that we included in the staff report that went out. If you look at the available GIS data, there appears to be a slight encroachment into this property from the neighboring house to the east. We did ask the surveyor to give us kind of basically identify the location of that house relative to the property line, and they did do that. And when you look at the actual conditions in the field, that house sits, the closest it gets to this property line, the eastern property line of this plat, is about 4.3 feet away. So in our zoning code, that setback is compliant with the side yard setback requirement. So moving on from that, the actual request is to consolidate two existing lots on Oakland Avenue. There's the existing lot lines in red there, and then what they want to do is basically delete that lot line in the center, and their goal is to consolidate the lots and then build a house on this property in the future. The property, both lots are zoned R2 residential, and in this zoning district for a single house, the minimum lot size is 7,200 square feet. For a duplex, it's 9,000 square feet. The largest of the two lots that exist today is about 4,900 square feet, so this replat brings two non-conforming lots regarding the square footage of them into compliance. Same with the minimum frontage. The minimum frontage for this zoning district is 60 feet for a single unit and 70 feet for a duplex. The existing lots both have 40-foot frontages, so this replat will bring them into compliance with today's zoning standards. We also reviewed it in relation to our subdivision requirements, and most of the standards are met by the plat. One of the conditions that staff is recommending is that the final plat be sealed by the surveyor. And also, there's another condition recommended by staff that has actually already been met. that we wanted to make sure that the utility reviewers, like the county and AES Ohio, had a chance to review the plat because it went out kind of late when we were planning on having the meeting last month. And they had a chance to respond, and they reviewed it. We got some comments, so that condition's actually already met. But staff does have a recommendation, but before I get to that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Lackey? I don't have anything. Ms. Fisher?
I have none.
Mr. Urbis? Mr. Woski?
I have none.
So I guess, and I'm assuming this is going to be part of your recommendation, but we can strike number 2?
I mean, it doesn't hurt to keep it in there, but
Okay.
you can strike it if you feel that's necessary.
We'll leave it up to Ms. Fisher because I do believe this is her.
It is.
So unless we have any other questions or comment, Ms. Fisher, would you read the motion, please?
I do. Whereas an application has been received from Peter Gard, owner of 2 vacant lots on Oakland Avenue, Dayton, Ohio, 45409, parcel IDs N64000308, 0045, and N64000308, 0046, requesting approval of a replat of the subject lots. This replat would consolidate the 2 lots into a single lot containing .2102 acres, and whereas this request constitutes approval of a final record plan for the newly described lot, and whereas the Planning Commission has reviewed the facts surrounding this request, including an oral and written report by city staff, which is incorporated herein. I move that the applicant's request for approval of the final record plan for the Gard plat be approved with the following conditions, which must be met prior to the provision of the Planning Commission signatures on the record plan. 1, that record plat be sealed by the surveyor. 2, the applicant agrees to coordinate with and adhere to record plan modifications recommended by city engineer and applicable utility reviewers. End of motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lackey?
Yes.
Mr. Urbis?
Yes.
Mr. Woski?
Yes.
And Mr. Rethman?
Yes. Moving right along, 5th item on the agenda this evening is 1449 Cardington Road. It is a lot consolidation. It is PC-24-001. Mr. Holmesy.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another very, very straightforward request. It involves 2 existing lots, both of which are non-conforming with regards to size and minimum lot frontage. It contains a home and a patio area, and the homeowner is just seeking to consolidate them together to clean up the existing lot lines. The map on the screen here shows the larger lot that contains the house and the smaller one that contains a portion of their rear patio area. And there's the record plan, the existing lot lines in red, what the proposed lot lines also in red. Much like the last record plan, this property is zoned R2. So the minimum lot size is about, for a single house, is 7,200 square feet. The existing lot that contains the house is roughly that size, but this replat would bring that into compliance, and the minimum frontage would take the 2 non-conforming lots and bring them into conformance with today's 60-foot minimum frontage requirement. In addition to the zoning code, staff reviewed the record plan in relation to the subdivision standards, and much like the last record plan, it meets all the requirements. And staff has 1 recommended condition relating to sealing the record plan before the Planning Commission provides signatures. And before I get to the staff recommendation, I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for Mr. Holmesy from the left side? Anybody on the right side? Yeah.
I have one. Mr. Holmesy, the second lot that is being split in half, what happens to the remainder of that lot that is not being subsumed by the first lot?
You're talking about the lot to the east?
Yes.
That lot's actually owned by the neighboring property owner, so it'll just stay as it is today, as a non-conforming lot.
Okay, so it's a non-conforming lot, but it belongs to the neighbor next door?
Yeah.
Does he need to do any adjustment to his lot line?
Not unless he wants to have like a building addition that would cross the lot line, or there's no requirement to, because in our non-conforming chapter in our zoning code, any lot that was legally established before March of 2015 is considered legal and non-conforming. So unless the landowner changes anything, it can stay as is for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I don't have any questions, so with that, then, I believe, Mr. Waskey, is this one yours?
Yes, it is. I have a motion as follows. Whereas an application has been received from Melanie Cole, owner of 2 lots at 1449 Cardington Road, Dayton, Ohio, 45409, parcel IDs N64 00906 0015 and N64 0906 0016, requesting approval of a replat of the subject lots. This replat would consolidate the 2 lots into a single lot containing 0.2241 acres. And whereas this request constitutes approval of a final record plan for the newly described lot. And whereas the Planning Commission has reviewed the facts surrounding this request, including an oral and written report by city staff, which is incorporated herein. I move that the applicant's request for approval of the final record plan for the Cole plat be approved with the following condition, which must be met prior to provision of Planning Commission signatures on the record plan. Number 1, the plat drawing be sealed by the surveyor. That is the end of my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Waskey,
Yes?
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Urbis,
Yes.
Mr. Lackey,
Yes.
and Mr. Rethman.
Yes. All right, item number 6 on our agenda this evening is 3712 to 3716 Wilmington Pike. It is a dedication plan approval. It is PC-24-002. Mr. Holmesy.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another dedication plan for the property at 3712 Wilmington Pike. When I first started here, I learned this building had been referred to as the Doc Murphy Building. I guess there was a family practice in there at one time. It had been vacant for a while. A dental practice renovated the interior of the space and has moved in. I can't remember exactly when they moved in there officially, but it's been within the last couple of months. And if you look at the existing lot lines out front, there's not a sidewalk in front of this property, and the property owner would like to have one installed there, but the right-of-way is not wide enough to accommodate one. So what this dedication plat would do is it would basically take the front lot line and move it kind of within a foot or so of the existing parking lot and create enough room to build a sidewalk right there to connect to the sidewalk to the south, and then an eventual hopeful connection to a future sidewalk to the north. And we've met out at the property with our engineering department and some other people to talk about it. There will be some trees that will have to come down and some water mains that have to be moved. But that is mainly what triggered this request tonight. There's the actual dedication plan. The red area outlined there is the portion being officially dedicated. Most of that falls within the existing right-of-way boundary. Kind of the piece that's actually in the road is a cleanup dedication, and then the right-of-way is being widened by a little more than 10 feet into the existing property. And the zoning standards aren't really applicable. The lot's not being made too small, and the frontage is not being reduced in size. So the zoning standards aren't really applicable to this request, but the subdivision requirements are, and staff did review the dedication plan in relation to our subdivision standards, and it was found to meet all of our requirements. So staff does have a recommendation, but before I get to that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for Mr. Holmesy?
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
Is this 3712 and 3716, 3712 through 3716
It's 3712 through 3716.
through? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's titled on the dedication plan.
Okay.
So that's why the motion's worded that way.
Okay.
All right. Any, Mr. Urbis, Mr. Waskey?
Just a side comment. This is called the Dr. Murphy's office. It's just a side comment. That was the first place my wife got a job after high school. She
Oh, really?
she trained in Dr. Murphy back in the day when nurses were physician trained before they went to school, nursing school of any kind.
I went back on older Google Street View pictures, and the sign was still on the building, I think in like 2007, or maybe like 2011. I think it was still, I don't know if it was him who was still practicing, but there was a,
Yeah.
I saw that, but when I started, it was vacant, but
Yeah.
I appreciate the piece of history.
Many years ago.
That's awesome.
Recommendation?
Oh, yes. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission motion to approve the dedication plan, case number PC-24-002, as submitted.
All right. Mr. Lackey, I believe this is your motion.
Yes. This is a dedication plan for 3712 through 3716 Wilmington Pike, whereas an application has been received from Zach Halleck, representing the owners of 3712 through 3716 Wilmington Pike, requesting approval of a dedication plan that would dedicate a 0.195 acre portion of Wilmington Pike as a public right-of-way. And whereas this request constitutes approval of a final dedication plan for this portion of Wilmington Pike, and whereas the Planning Commission has reviewed the facts surrounding this request, including an oral and written report by city staff, which is incorporated herein, I move that the applicant's request for approval of final dedication plan for 3712 through 3716 Wilmington Pike be approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Lackey,
Yes.
Mr. Urbis,
Yes.
Mr. Waskey,
Yes.
Ms. Fisher,
Yes.
and Mr. Rethman.
Yes. All right. Item number 7 on our agenda this evening is audience participation for any items not on the written agenda. If anyone has anything that they'd like to address the Planning Commission, now's your opportunity. Seeing as no one's coming forward, we will move on to other business. Signing of plats.
We do have two. Both of the dedication plans are here for signature, and we did correct the years on those plats, so thanks for pointing.
Happens when we roll into a new calendar year. Communications and reports.
I just want to give a couple quick updates. We are beginning to draft the next big zoning code amendment. A couple of the bigger items that we wanted to talk about with the Planning Commission. We already talked about the neighborhood business district, but these are really the three items that'll probably generate more discussion than most of the others. A lot of the proposed changes will be pretty minor. The first one is short-term rentals. We did have a work session with council last month and got some direction from them. So we'll probably have a work session with the Planning Commission as well to discuss those. And then another one that we've had a big influx and interest about are auxiliary dwelling units. I believe they have been discussed in the past. So we're working on drafting some ideas for how to potentially allow those or address them in some way. And then the neighborhood business zoning district, we'd like to officially create that mainly for the purpose of making it easier to rezone some of our EDOs. And there's several other minor changes that I'll go through later, but we are in the process of drafting this, and we'll probably have a work session here. Start having work sessions in March about this.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, Mr. Waskey.
When you mentioned auxiliary dwelling unit, I've heard that mentioned in several different contexts. Is that the kind of thing like where somebody is living above a garage type of thing?
Yeah, it can be. There's a lot of different kinds. Through the research I've done, I used to only know about attached, which you basically build an addition to your house. You have a separate kitchen, living room, bedroom, full bath, and it's connected to your house, and there's usually a door that connects the two, but it's effectively can function on its own as a separate dwelling unit. And that can sometimes be above like a garage that's attached to your house. It can sometimes just be next to, attached to your house, not above a garage. And then there's also, I haven't seen a lot of these in Ohio or really any. I read about them more in California, but where you build an internal auxiliary dwelling unit where you basically don't expand the footprint of your house, but you carve out you add a kitchen, you add a full bath. Those are mostly like in basements. when you want to add a dwelling unit downstairs. But again, it's a part of the overall unit. And then there's detached, which is in like a detached garage. You basically turn it into a living unit. There's normally some default standards that most communities have. There's normally a maximum size, like they don't want them to be enormous. There's usually setback requirements, and some cities regulate whether or not they can have separate water and sewer hookups. Some regulate parking. Some say that you can't have a separate driveway. It really just depends. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But yes, that's a very long-winded answer to your question. They can be above garages, yes. They can also be in many other areas.
And many other things. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions on the upcoming code amendments? All right.
And then last two items, I know I had been asked about the strategic plan at the last meeting. That has been finalized, and we're awaiting council's approval of that document. And some bigger news, I know that this was discussed kind of as an idea during the last public hearing we had about a rezoning. We have begun the process of starting a comprehensive plan update, which would be an update to our existing comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2002. As a part of that, it'll include probably some public hearings with the Planning Commission for people to come in and to talk. We don't know exactly how the process will look yet, but it's in the works, and that'll be kind of the next big item that hopefully gets off the ground this year.
Very good. All right, Planning Commission comments. Mr. Lackey?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Fisher?
None.
Mr. Urbis?
Yep.
Mr. Woski?
I have none.
All right. I don't have any comments, so at this point, we will adjourn this regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Kettering Planning Commission for February 5th, 2024 at 7:26 p.m. till our next regularly scheduled meeting.